As always, thank you so much to Squarespace for continuing to support my channel and thus allowing me to keep making these videos. Okay, so while I was filming the previous video, I actually got an idea for another one, which is to show you guys all of my previous self-published slash traditionally published works. I realized that there's quite a few of them that piled up over the years, and I thought it would be cool to just give you a quick glance over all of them and then show you some recent sketches that I've been doing while explaining just my general history of publications and my experiences with self-publishing and all of that stuff, because I'm sure some of you guys are probably curious about it. Here are all the books. There are 8 of them in this pile. There are actually 7 altogether, and to just quickly show you guys what they are, the very first one, like in my last video, is Carousel. I'm literally wearing the same thing because I just filmed it, so there's that. Back again so soon. Yeah, so this is Carousel from my last video. Check it out if you haven't seen it. The whole flip through is there. This is the second self-published book that I did, which is the first volume of my comic, my online comic at the time, called Id Fracture, which I'm currently working on as a total reboot called Gloaming Veil, and you can find that in the description below. Please check it out. It's my huge lifelong project. So there's that. This was really cool. It was my very first Kickstarter. I did it when I just started, when Kickstarter just came about. I'm going to tell you about it more in the next portion of this video. And this is the third book. Pardon, there it is. Again, self-published. It's called In Absentia, and this was my very first art book. It was very exciting for me to do this, and I will again tell you more about it in the next portion. And after In Absentia came Milk of Melancholy. This is not super old. It's from several years ago. Again, self-published, and I absolutely loved putting this one together. I think I did it after... Yes, so actually I skipped something in between. So right before this book, I had my first officially published comic, which is called Grimoire Noir. This is the soft cover version. I actually don't have any more hardcovers. I used to have one, but they're gone because I think I sold them all. And so this is the original English language publication of Grimoire Noir, which is a graphic novel that I illustrated for a writer. Her name is Vera Greentea, and this is our joint project together that was published by First Second Comics in 2018, I believe. So this is it. And as long as I'm showing you that, I also wanted to show you the French edition of this book, which I absolutely adore. I think it looks beautiful. I love how they changed it up a little bit with a different font for the title. And also, as you can see, it's quite a bit larger, which I think was really great for my art because, oh gosh, I'll tell you more about how that went, but I put so much effort into every single panel of this comic, and it's basically full color, even though it's kind of monochromatic. But anyways, I'll talk more about that as well. And last but not least is Prism, which is my latest full color, just jam-packed with stuff art book, published by 3D Total, came out last year, and you will be able to find all these books in my description below, and well, almost all of them. But yeah, this one is my pride and joy. I worked so hard on this book, and I think it turned out amazing, and I will of course tell you more about that in the next section. And that was the last one, but the one that is just coming up shortly is my latest self-published effort, which is a brand new sketch collection called Halcyon Days. No overlap with my previous art books, all brand new sketches from recent years, and I will talk a little bit more about that as well. So let's move on to the next portion of the video, which will be just me sketching on some character designs for Gloaming Veil production, which I'm currently working on, and just telling you more about my self-publishing and publishing experiences. Let's go. Alright, so here I am with much better audio quality, and I'm showing you some of my recent sketches that I was working on for the production of Gloaming Veil. It's been so much fun so far, you guys. I'm so glad I'm finally tackling chapter 1, but I'll tell you more about it in another video because, I don't know, there's really not too much to explain as far as the sketching goes. Just some character design updates for Fiona's brother. I wanted to steer away from potential spoilers, so I'm just going to talk to you guys about this later on. And in the meantime, like I said, the topic I picked for this video that I thought would be more interesting is my history of publishing experience. So I know that some of you guys probably are interested in self-publishing and publishing in general, and so I thought I'd share my expertise and experience very briefly in this video. Well, not super briefly, but we'll see how it goes. And yeah, I just showed you guys all the books that I've published over my art career, and it's been quite some time, I believe, since the first self-published sketch collection, Carousel. It has been around 11 years, I'm gonna say. And now that I think about it, it's possible that I did Id Fracture before I did Carousel, actually. It's a little bit of a hazy memory situation for me, but I'll just start with Carousel, how I went about it, and then obviously I'll just sort of chronologically more or less go through it. I should have probably double-checked this before starting, but it doesn't really matter too much. So, okay, so for Carousel, I really was super inspired by a bunch of other artists who have been publishing their sketch collections, and it's still a super common practice. I see it a lot, and I absolutely love when artists do that because I myself love looking at their sketches, and so I wanted to do that for the first time. I was totally unsure how to really go about it, but I came across this website at the time called 24 Hour Books, and that honestly really appealed to me because I was working with a super short timeline. I believe I wanted to have these sketch collection books in time for some sort of convention that I was doing. I did do conventions back in the day quite a bit, before this long gap that I had in me attending conventions. I do still go to conventions now. I kind of restarted that maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, but before that there was a very long time in which I didn't really do any conventions, but I digress. So this website, 24 Hour Books, was pretty straightforward. Like I mentioned, what appealed about it was the turnaround time. Obviously wasn't 24 hours, but I think all in all, it actually took about a week, maybe 2 weeks tops for the whole thing to be done, and that's kind of incredible. Although it was a very short run. I think I got about 100, I think, yeah, I got 100 copies done. Maybe it was 110 with some extras, but so it wasn't a huge amount of books, which is why I did sell them pretty quickly. But the process was really straightforward. I just basically had to PDF the files together and submit them to the website, and I was really happy with how quickly it, like I said, it got done. And the only thing that I kind of, well, not regret, but like the only thing I wasn't super happy about was the quality of the printing. It was, I don't know exactly what kind of printing it was, but I know because it was black and white, it was just kind of a little bit grainy and not as clear as I would have liked it to be. But all in all, I think because recently I did the flip through and I was looking at it again, I think it still looks pretty good, and I think I really enjoy looking at it. And for the most part, it does the job. It looks, I mean, it mostly contains black and white sketches anyway, so that's fine. And there was just one color page, and the printing quality on the color page was very good. So that was one of my first experience. I think it was my first experience with self-publishing, but like I said, I don't remember. It's possible that that was the second time. So I'll just talk about my first Kickstarter experience, which was pretty crazy. It was a spontaneous decision on my part. At that time, I've been working on this webcomic for several years, starting in high school, very sporadic, so I would only update it once, I don't know, whenever I had a burst of energy to work on it, but sometimes I would go months and months without updating it. So While I'm on the topic of Gloamingvale, I'm actually using Squarespace to host this comic. So Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to make a beautiful website for your online business, which in my case is now also my comic. One of my biggest reasons for choosing Squarespace in particular is due to the super easy built-in customization engine, which allowed me to make my comic website look exactly how I wanted it to, and it was quite easy to do so. There are so many useful features, including the built-in mailing list and homepage pop-up in case you have an announcement, lots of marketing tools, and a ton more features. I've already loaded up all the prologue pages of my comic that I have finished so far, so when it's time to update my comic every Monday, it only takes me about a minute to do so, which is amazing. I would highly recommend using Squarespace for any website needs you may have, especially for a portfolio site. You can head over to squarespace.com if you want to get started for free. Once you put the website together and are ready to launch, you can head to squarespace.com/cosmicspectrumart and get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Again, that's squarespace.com/cosmicspectrumart for 10% off your first purchase. And now, let's get back to the video. It was super chaotic, but by the time I decided to put it together into a book, I had accumulated about 100 pages, and I met a friend, well, not a friend, but an artist I admired at the time. Her name is Shioon. She's still active. I still love her work. We are friends now, but at the time, I think I looked at her more as like a potential mentor, or as like a figure that I really looked up to. This was ages ago, and I reached out to her, I believe, to find out how she published her comics, and I think she recommended the factory, or like the content. It was a factory in China that she worked with at the time. I don't know if she still works with them or not, but she was like the first introduction for me into this world of self-publishing more legitimately, like not using the 24-hour book thing, and I was looking for better quality as well. So honestly, I'm so thankful that I did ask her about this, and I got so much helpful and useful advice from her at the time, and I really appreciate it. Hopefully I'll remember to link her work in the description, but yes, I still absolutely love her work, and she's gotten so many books together since then. It's incredible. Anyways, so yeah, I decided to jump on the opportunity to do a Kickstarter because it was this fresh thing that just appeared on the artist radar, and I saw a few other people doing their Kickstarter projects, and maybe that was one of the things that actually made it kind of difficult, because there wasn't that much information at the time in terms of how things worked, and I think looking back I could have probably done the campaign better, but you know what, it was successful. It wasn't like a runaway success like most Kickstarter projects for artists tend to be these days, or at least from the ones that I see, but it did get funded with the modest amount that I set out to collect for the publication of this small project, and I think I ordered 500 copies of the comic, which is a little bit more than my previous attempt with Carousel. And so it was a little bit more ambitious, but honestly, looking back on it, it was pretty smooth. I didn't really encounter any problems. I did some funny things with the fulfillment. I mean, I thought about it obviously quite a bit, and before putting together the Kickstarter, and I did it with the help of my really good friend Louisa, who I still write, like, she's my #1 consultant with writing the comics, and we've known each other for, she's my best friend, we've known each other for a very long time, so we do a lot of things together. Like, I will run everything by her, and she helps me out quite a bit with these things, and so together we filmed this little video introducing ourselves and talking about the project. It was my first time on camera. It was like this potato quality video filmed with one of our phones. It was honestly mostly just a lot of fun. It wasn't like a super professional type of project introduction, but you know, we did our best. We were, I mean, seriously, we were not that far out of high school at that point, so we're still pretty young and didn't really, I don't know how to do things super professionally, but like I said, overall the project was super successful. We did get the funding, we got the books, everything went according to the schedule, and the fulfillment, as from what I can remember, was pretty smooth, even though back in the day it was so much more difficult and so non-streamlined compared to what I do now with all these years of experience. And yes, so both Carousel and It Fracture are of course out of print, have been for a really long time, and will not be coming back, but they were the first two projects of self-publishing for me, and they will always have a special place in my heart because those two projects really made me develop this lifelong, I guess, obsession with books and self-publishing and just everything that goes into putting books together from scratch by yourself. And those were my two first experiences with that. So some years went by. I believe I tackled my next self-published project after I graduated from Sheridan College, and it was during my time when I was already working on Grimoire Noir, but because I spent like 2.5 years working on Grimoire Noir, the graphic novel that was published in 2018, it also took a couple of years for it to actually come out, so you know, it was a really long time between start to finish when it comes to that project, so I'll talk about it next. But for In Absentia, I graduated from Sheridan and I had accumulated so much artwork over that time, and I was at the peak. I mean, I don't know if I was ever really at the peak of my obsession with my characters because it's kind of just like this steady lifelong thing, but at that time in particular, because I spent the whole last year of my animation studying degree or whatever, the 4th year, I spent that time doing exclusively artwork for my characters, or basically I chose my thesis film to be a short animated trailer for my comic, which I was working on rewriting at the time, It Fracture, of course, now Gloamingvale. And I didn't really draw anything other than that whole time. I didn't really do that much freelance work, and so I had accumulated so much artwork in relation to Gloamingvale, and I wanted to put it all into this art book for the first time. I've never done an art book before that, and I've always wanted to. And of course, again, I was super inspired by Shilin because I have I got a bunch of her art books before, and it was just so amazing for me to see her artwork collected like that. And because most artists actually at the time were doing these little zines or just much smaller books, self-published books with sketch collection that were for the most part sketch collections, I think to me, like according to people that I was surrounding myself with or like the conventions that I went to, Shilin was one of the only people that I came across that self-published an actual full-colored art book. So I thought, why not? I could do something like that too. And it had lots of sketches in it as well, but it had a lot of finished illustrations, and it was full color. And what's really cool about In Absentia is that it has such a range of different things in it. So from sketches that were pretty quick and throwaway to like more finished, cleaned up ones that are colored with markers, all the way to animation, pre-production stuff for the trailer slash thesis film that I was working on. So it's got some character designs, it had storyboards, it also had a color key with all the different color schemes for each scene that I was planning out, and it was just this really fun collection of all the things that I was doing during my college years, including extracurricular stuff obviously that had to do with my comic project. And so that was always like, I have fondness for all my art books. And around at that time I also discovered this new dimension that comes with self-publishing, or just publishing, I don't know, collections of artwork in general. I realized that it really was like putting a cap on an era, and really kind of solidifying a certain time period of certain years as like going over the things that I've accomplished, going over my body of work, made it feel so cathartic to just like put a finish on one chapter and start a brand new chapter in my art journey. So that realization or discovery, I guess, came about with the publication of In Absentia. And for In Absentia as well, because I ordered significantly more copies than I have before. So this time I ordered 1,000 copies, and it was still a soft cover book, so it wasn't like the super fancy type of thing, but it was full color. It was significantly more expensive. It took me a lot longer to put it together. I took it just generally like more seriously than the previous books, and like I said, because at this time I already had this affinity or like just this big fondness for just putting together books in general, I designed my own end leaves with just some new illustrations, and it was just a bit more involved than the previous books for sure, and it was so much fun. And also it was a time in my life where, because this was a much bigger thing, I don't know, for whatever reason I decided not to do a Kickstarter for that particular book, so I just went straight into pre-orders and just hope for the best in my, at the time, online shop, which was hosted by Store Envy, which, by the way, I would not recommend under any circumstances. That site really kind of blows. Honestly, it was terrible and there were so many issues, but whatever, I don't want to get into that. Overall though, the project was a success, and it really gave me so much more confidence in my artwork and in just in my audience and in my ability to make it as an artist in a sort of independent way long term, because I really wasn't sure what I was going to do at that time. Like, I have already definitely made steps towards independence, but I was still working on a contracted project, and I really wasn't sure what was going to happen with my career, where it was going to go, because it was a very kind of a difficult time in my life. But in any case, the project was definitely a cathartic experience, and it was absolutely amazing to be able to pull it together, because there were so many new skills that I had to learn around that time. I believe I decided to go with a different factory this time, and I did a bit of shopping around for what was available, and I went on Alibaba, and I came across one factory, or like book publisher, that I thought, not publisher, manufacturer, that I thought might work. I don't remember exactly how I picked, because there are so many, and there are quite a few options that are available in Alibaba. But anyways, so I picked one and I contacted them, and it was relatively straightforward to work together, but there were so many things that I had to learn. So one of the things was, at the time, I had to figure out how to just facilitate the whole process of importing goods from another country into Canada, where I'm from. And at that time, it actually helped me get over a bunch of anxiety, like residual anxieties that I was still dealing with, one of which being I hated making phone calls. And this is super common, I think, for people that are introverted and not super social and have a little bit of a social anxiety thing going on. You know what? I think this is actually something I want to talk about later, but just in a condensed format, yes, this experience of having to make so many phone calls and having to find a brokerage company and having to schedule things and like look into the status of the shipment and renting a car, getting a friend to help me pick up the shipment and all that, like making all those phone calls and staying on top of that really helped me get over the hurdle of me being too timid to make phone calls beforehand. So that was kind of funny, but yeah, that was a big one for sure, and the project was a big success. And at this point, In Absentia is also out of print. I ran out maybe not that long ago, like a year ago. 1,000 copies was quite a lot, and yeah, I'm not sure actually what my plans are for that book, but I do love it so much, and I am actually considering that maybe in the future I will reprint a second edition if there is enough demand for it, and I might just include the contents of Carousel in it because I think they are pretty relevant. So that's kind of something that I'm thinking about on the spot over here, but yeah, I'll let you guys know more about that if anything comes of it, for sure. But moving on to the next project, which was my very first officially published comic graphic novel, which is Grimoire Noir. There are other videos on my channel of me talking about that in detail because it is a whole story for sure, but that was another just whole bucket, truck full, ocean of learning experiences for me. There were a lot of things that I learned from that project, and overall, after all these years, it's a book that I definitely look on very fondly. And I did have to learn a lot of letting go in terms of having control over every single aspect of the publishing, like of just the way that the book comes together. Like if it was up to me, of course it would probably look a little bit different. It would certainly be bigger, and there are just a couple of other things, but overall it was really cool to see an official publication of my work for the first time and on bookshelves, and so that was amazing. And yeah, there are certainly a lot of positive things about that project as well, but if you want to know more about the juicy details of how it went down, I do have some other videos talking about it on my channel, and I'll try to remember to link those in the description of this one. So after that, there was a little bit of a gap in which I didn't really do any more book projects, but maybe 5 years ago, was it 5 years ago? Yeah, I decided to put another art book together because at that point I have accumulated enough artwork, I thought, to definitely be enough for another whole book. I should mention here that it's kind of tricky because I spent so long working on the graphic novel, and obviously everything that I drew for the graphic novel I could not publish independently, and so that was a ton of art that I couldn't really do anything with aside from it. Like there were a lot of things that were related to the comic that didn't make it into the actual graphic novel book itself, but that were like supplemental materials that I thought would be really cool to share. But unfortunately I had to, you know, put that in a vault and maybe wait for another opportunity, which incidentally came up later on, and I will bring that up again later. But for the most part, it was kind of like starting to find my footing on working on original stuff again when I was done with that project, and it did take a couple of more years to accumulate enough original artwork again to put together into a book, which was Milk of Melancholy. And for that project, it was definitely much smoother than in absentia. There were way less things that I had to figure out because I already had quite a bit of experience with self-publishing, considering the previous couple of projects. And so I thought overall the process of that was very smooth, and I did run a Kickstarter for that particular art book. I think I wanted to do a Kickstarter because I have seen many artists use Kickstarter since I used it originally all those years ago, and it seemed to really have grown as a platform. And there was a lot of opportunity there to find a secondary audience that wasn't necessarily my own. And I know that collectors of things like that sometimes go on Kickstarter and etc. So there were many reasons to use Kickstarter, and plus it was a more organized effort. So with pre-orders it's a little bit different, but with Kickstarter I wanted to give people an opportunity to get some of my original artwork through the Kickstarter as well, to help support the project and to have some fun stretch goals as well. So that was all pretty good. Some of the mistakes that I made, of course, there were always mistakes with every single one of these projects, like things that I would take things away from and do something different next time. So one of those things was not planning out the actual promotion social media campaign properly in advance. So because it took so much effort and so much work for me to put the Kickstarter together by myself, and there were also some new hurdles that I had to jump through, and I had to get over myself with a bunch of things that were very, very difficult for me at the time. One of those things was actually being on camera and talking, like having my voice recorded. So that was the project where I got over those hurdles, or at least took a step forward in order to get over them, which I shortly did with the beginning of my YouTube channel, which I started right after I did that project. So there were those things, and because there were just so many things that I had to do to prepare for the Kickstarter prior to its launch, it kind of ended up taking up the vast majority of my energy, and so I did not prepare properly for the actual campaign month for that project. And that is the biggest mistake I made for sure, because my energy fizzled out so fast, and because obviously I'm very lucky that my project did get funded pretty quickly. I will also say that the amount I set on it in the Kickstarter was very conservative. It was like pretty bare bones. It mostly just covered the production cost and like all the peripheral costs associated, and there wasn't very much included there for the actual work. And thankfully it did get funded quickly, so I was able to relax in terms of like the actual possibility of the project coming to fruition. But I should have definitely put way more effort into promoting it to my audience at the time, because in the end, I don't think I ended up making that much profit off of it. Of course I did in the years following, because I ordered 2,000 copies this time, which was double what I ordered for my previous project. And all in all, it was a big success. Again, it was such an amazing opportunity for me to just go over my work from that time period and just put a dot on it and finish it as a chapter in my life. And I also put a lot of thought into how I titled my art books. That's something that I talk about in Prism, I think, which is what I'm gonna get to next. But yeah, overall super positive experience. Definitely went relatively smoothly. I was able to get all my books, and it was so many. And I think I have a fulfillment vlog somewhere on my channel as well, so you can check that out. I'll try to also remember to include the link in the description for that. So lastly, one of the projects that's already complete, my last, I guess, complete project, is another published book with 3D Total, which was an absolutely incredible opportunity that I was so lucky to take part in, because I really love 3D Total art books, and I have so many in my collection, and they're some of the most beautiful art books that I own. So I was feeling super grateful that I was able to be one of the artists to work with 3D Total. And so that whole project was such a wonderful experience for me, because for once I didn't have to worry about all the little technical things of planning a campaign, putting together the Kickstarter, or doing any of the multitude of things that go into actually self-publishing. And I was able to just solely focus on the contents of the book, which it's a very thick book. I put so much effort into it. And for the first time, I also included quite a bit of writing in it. So I was able to go over my art career and kind of divide it into these little epochs that I was able to discuss with some takeaways from what I learned, and you know, just the steps that I took in my journey. And so that art book is called Prism, the Art Journey of Cosmic Spectrum, obviously titled because a big portion of the book is the whole entire art journey that I went on so far, and that was so fun to put together. And it also like just opened up a new dimension of closure, and I guess just just going over those times and seeing the good and the bad and like just everything, it was very cathartic once more for me to do that. And I think that's obviously it was my best effort, and it's the most recent, so that art book I think is my favorite of the ones that I have put out so far. Even though I do love all of them equally, in a sense, they all have equal value in my heart because the work that I put so much effort into. But yeah, the experience of the reception of that art book as well, obviously, of course, thanks to Kickstarter, thanks to 3D Total running the Kickstarter. They did such a wonderful job of putting it together, and I had a little bit more energy to myself to focus on the promotion during the month, even though I will say, once again, I should have thought more about that in advance. That's the mistake that I often make, is that I don't have enough energy to put into the advertising campaign, which I think is actually a pretty common problem for artists, and maybe there's room for making a video just about that and how to potentially approach that. It's a whole topic, but yeah, it was incredible to see the super positive reception of that Kickstarter, and it did so much better than my previous ones that I was absolutely just blown away by the positivity and just the interest in my work, and it really meant so much to me. So since then, I've been hard at work at my golden project, which I've been trying to work on for all these years, Gloaming Veil, my comic, which has finally started. So if this is the first video of mine that you came across, or if you still haven't heard, but I have officially started publishing it. It's free to read online, and the website is gloamingveil.com, which again, I will link all that stuff in the description of this video. But yeah, it's been an amazing journey with all these art books. There were a couple of little things in between that I didn't mention, that I don't have copies of, that I did a couple of book covers and whatnot, but I thought that was irrelevant because it was just the cover and maybe a couple of illustrations inside, so I did not mention those. But that brings me to the very last project thus far, which is Halcyon Days. It's a sketch collection that is brand new, and I just found myself inspired again to make another book because I do a lot of sketching and a lot of warm-ups, and I thought that's the kind of content that not a lot of artists, I guess, are super forthcoming with. I'm talking about the bad sketches, like the crappy sketches and the pen doodles and the little super crude thumbnails. I'm sure there are a ton of artists that do share that stuff, but I find, from at least what I've seen around, is not the most common thing to see people be super public about, because some of those drawings are, you know, they're not the best representation of a person's work. And I thought that among obviously many finished and more polished sketches and drawings, it would be cool to also include a bunch of those, which I did in my Halcyon Days art book or sketch collection. And I also realized that I've never actually put together another sketch collection since Carousel, which was my very first, and that kind of really ties this all together neatly because I am super proud of this newest project. It's been the smoothest so far. I mean, fingers crossed because it's still happening, but the production schedule was totally on point. If anything, it's even a little bit early, but you know, like I said, I don't know what's gonna happen. The shipment is due to come into Toronto, or the area where I'm at, on the 30th of June, which is super soon. But you know, I do know that it doesn't exactly work like so quickly after the shipment actually gets into port. There's probably going to be some time for it to get sorted out and for it to get delivered, so hopefully it'll all end up basically around the schedule that I projected, which was fulfillment happening at the beginning of August. So that'll give me enough time to organize everything. So if you are hearing this for the first time, I do have the pre-orders for this book up in my shop right now, cosmicspectrum.art. This was, once again, a solo effort. I'm super happy to be making books all by myself again. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I will give you a little spoiler that the next one in my plans is definitely the first volume of Gloaming Veil, which has been going great so far. I started working on the first chapter a couple of weeks ago. It's been smooth, and obviously what you're looking at here is some sketches in relation to that. So yes, that brings us to the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed listening to my experience with self-publishing and official publishing. I know that it was relatively quick, so I didn't get into any like super fine details or anything like that, but if you have questions about anything at all, please don't hesitate to leave a comment. I will read all of them. I try to do my best to answer questions when I see them, and even if I don't reply to your comment, please note that I do read it, and I really appreciate everybody who takes the time to leave a comment on my videos. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so, which will help me out so much, and turn on notifications so you don't miss my upcoming videos, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!